Okay, there we go. Welcome, everybody. Okay, my name is Uri Pilichowski. Just to give you a little introduction, I'm actually coming to you from Israel. Probably no better place to teach about Zionism than here in Israel. And we're going to have a series of podcasts, and I'm grateful to Viv and Jody and Ellie and the whole team at JNF that give me the opportunity to teach. I work for Nefesh. I am the senior educator of the Zionist Education Initiative, which is a mouthful for Nefesh. And I work in our Aliyah campus in Jerusalem. And it's a beautiful campus. If you haven't stopped by, you definitely should. And that's where I teach. I teach mostly English-speaking groups who come in through Ben Gurion Airport. If you are an English-speaking group coming in through Ben Gurion Airport, I want you stopping by our campus and taking one of our seminars on Zionism. Our goal in our seminars is not to convince. I know we're from Nefesh. I'm one of the only people whose goal is not to help people make Aliyah. Very happy if people make Aliyah, but that's not my side of the organization. Our goal is just to educate, and what that means is to give people something to think about. I'm not trying to get people to become Zionists. I'm not trying to get people to become anti-Zionists. I'm trying to get them to think about Zionism. That's it. So that's my full agenda out there on the table, so you understand. And we all know something about Zionism. We don't necessarily know everything about Zionism. A lot of times when we talk about Zionism, what we talk about isn't so much about Zionism, but about the history of Zionism. When did Zionism really start? Who started Zionism? Who were the figures in Zionism? It's all the nightmares that we come back from boring books or high school classes that we didn't really appreciate so much. And when I've spent the last, I think it's almost 2 years now, taking a deep dive, hours every single day into Zionism. And what's fascinating are the issues of Zionism. Not playing defense against those that are opposed to Zionism, but the issues of Zionism. And the most important issue that we have when it comes to Zionism is, first and foremost, what is Zionism, right? Everybody's going to have a different approach, a different understanding of what Zionism is. I'm sure if we turned everybody's mics on now and gave everybody a chance to explain what Zionism is, you'd be surprised of the 845 people currently on this Zoom right now. So we would have, probably because we're Jews, we probably have 1,600 different explanations of Zionism. That's how it would work. But even if we were just giving our own opinions and just saying what Zionism is, we would actually have a more diverse definition than we're used to. And the reason for that is fascinating. The reason is because with all the rush to Zionism, all the Zionist congresses that we just celebrated from in Basel and all the different books that are written about Zionism, the Zionists never got together. I'm talking about the early Zionists, the ones that started the Zionist political movement from Herzl to Amichai to everybody together. They never came up with a consensus definition of Zionism. It's the most fascinating thing in the world. We have this whole movement. It's massively successful. It's created an entire nation that people only dreamed about for thousands of years. And it's succeeding. We all like to bemoan, Israel's doing great. It's an amazing country. We're a top 10 economy, top 10 military. You go around Israel, you have all the food you could want, all the comforts that you could want. It's hard for Jews to admit this without complaining. We've been successful. We've succeeded. We can smile, right? We've done it. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. We've actually succeeded at something. For thousands of years, we looked at ourselves and said, are we ever going to succeed? We succeeded, and all we mostly do is complain about our successes, but we've succeeded. So we have this whole movement that created this massive success, and yet we've never come to define it. We've never said, what was this movement? What does it stand for? What is it? What is Zionism? So the first thing that we have to do before we do anything else is first and foremost define Zionism. That's got to be our first class, because if our first lecture isn't defining Zionism, then every single thing that we do from this point on is just going to be confusing to us. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to define Zionism. Now, I'm going to switch the slide behind me. and this could be triggering for some people. So I don't want people to get scared here. Okay, when I have an audience in front of me, I give them this warning to brace yourselves. I don't know the background of most of the people that are with us now, but I'm going to say a word that could bring back horrible memories for some people. But it's really the only way I've learned to be able to explain Zionism. And here it goes. I'm going to explain the word that I'm going to use is chemistry, and that can bring back some triggering memories for people, and it can be hard. But the only way I can explain Zionism is if I look at this quote here that's behind me and look at it as a compound made up of 4 different elements. Again, I know this could be hard for some people. Deep breath. It's okay. That's the end of the chemistry analogy. But we're going to be looking at this and looking at now. I'm going to ask people. You could type it in. You could turn on your mic. Which Zionist scholar said this quote? Who's brave enough to? You can't expect me to talk for 30, 45 minutes straight. So who's going to be the brave soul to take a guess as to who said this? No Googling. I know some of you are Googling. You're looking up to see who said this. Who said this quote? Who wants to take a? I'll call on people. I don't mind. I'm a teacher. I can call on people and I have no problem doing it. So who said this quote here? Who wants to give a guess? Who's a brave soul? Nobody's this.
Herzl would be an easy guess.
In the chats, you've got some.
Oh, in the chats. Okay, I wasn't looking at the chats. There we go. Okay, so we've got Churchill, Herzl, Herzog. Okay, now you Herzog. You get that's you see Herzog. I gotta tell you, Mark, that there's like 4 different Herzogs. You could be talking about the chief rabbi. You could be talking about the president, the next president, the ambassador. Herzog's an easy one because that's just laying your bets like across the table there. Okay, so we've got Churchill, Herzl, Herzog. Those are our main guesses. Okay, so you're all incorrect. The person that wrote this was me, and the reason why I wrote it. See, I put quotes there, and everybody thinks it's a famous Zionist scholarly statement. But the reason why I had to write this, and I couldn't get somebody else, right, was because you can't find a definition that everybody agrees to on Zionism. So I had to make one up. And there are all different types of Zionists. I'm sure on our call right now, there are all different types of Zionists out there. So of all the different types of Zionists, we have secular Zionists, religious Zionists, communist Zionists, socialist Zionists, capitalist Zionists. These are real type of spiritual Zionists, revisionist Zionists, practical Zionists. These are real categories. These aren't things I'm making up. There are I know at least 8 different types of Zionism that was created. So all these Zionists try to find something where everybody would say, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's something I agree with. I don't have any problem with that one." Right? I agree. So try to find something. This is the only one. I don't think any of the different Zionists would disagree with this compound in the quote that you see here. Okay, so I think that they would all agree, and that's why I'm confident in saying we can say this is Zionism. Others would add to it, but I don't think anyone would subtract from it. I don't think any Zionist would subtract from it. Okay, that being said, now the question becomes, what are the 4 elements here of Zionism? Right? What are the 4 elements that are in this compound of Zionism? So let's read this through. Okay, so it's the Jewish people have a right to self-determination in their historic homeland, the land of Israel. I'm going to name you the 4 elements here. The first one is the Jewish people. The second one is right. Okay, rights. The third is self-determination. And the fourth is the historic homeland, the land of Israel. Okay, those are our 4 elements that we have. Okay, great. What do they all mean? Let's take them apart and decide and define what they all mean. Let's go through. Okay, Jewish people. What does it mean to the Jewish people? Right. So a lot of, and apologize for the spelling mistake that I noticed right before we started here, but that's okay. So everyone's going to be looking just for the spelling mistake now. Okay, so now, right? So here's the idea. Okay, when we talk about the Jewish people, a lot of people assume that Judaism and the Jewish people is just a religion. It's just a religion. Now, I put the words "just" in asterisks For all of you that know how relationships work, there's a killer word out there in relationships, okay? A killer word. The killer word is just. If you use just with somebody else, doesn't matter the nature of your relationship, you're in trouble. Because what you're saying is, what you're about to do is very, very little effort. It's just this. Because for you, it's just. But for the other person, it might vary. Could you just take out the garbage? Could you just fill out this form? Could you just talk to the client? You're putting it down, right? So when people say about the Jews that they're just a religion, what they're doing is they're actually minimizing us. We are not just a religion. We are a people. There's a big difference between the two. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, we could go on and on and on, different religions, that doesn't make you a people. And those religions don't claim to be a people. They claim to be a religion. A Christian can live in many, many different lands. A people are a group that has become organized by being from one area. That's what a people is. The Jews are a people. Our names aren't really Jews. We're not really Jews. If you think about what our name is, historically, we are Am Yisrael. We are B'nai Yisrael. In English, we're Israelites. The reason why that's our name is because we come from Israel. Americans are called Americans because they come from America. The French are French because they come from France. Belgians are, I don't know what, Ellie, what's someone from Belgium called? I try to figure this out, but right, so they're from Belgium, okay, and Germans are Germans because they're from Germany. Jews or Israelites are called Israelites because we are from Israel. The name got switched to Jews because at a certain point, the people stopped calling Israel Israel. They stopped calling it Eretz Yisrael and started calling it Judea. And so therefore, the people started calling themselves after the new name of the land and started calling themselves Jews. But we are, right, as Mark writes in the chat here, right, Jews are from the tribe of well, it's really from the land of Judea, right? Not the tribe of Judea. Maybe you're referring to Judah, Mark, but that's right. So we are from the area of Judah, right, of Judea. And that's how we got the name Jews. But we're really from Israel, and we're really Israelites. I'm trying to get that back in vogue and trying to get people to start calling ourselves Israelites. It's not working so well, but it's a campaign I have. We'll see how, that should be our next thing, is to try to get people to say that we're really Israelites. We'll see how far it goes. But the point is that we are a people, and we became a people thousands of years ago. When we were leaving Egypt, nobody said, oh, there goes that religion. They said, there goes that people. And when we entered the land of Israel, Joshua, about a 10-minute drive from where I'm sitting right now, the people, right, that's when the nation of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, has come back. They're coming back into the land. The people of Jericho weren't scared when Joshua came in of a religion. They were scared of a people. That's what terrified them. And that's what they needed walls, which didn't protect them from. But that's what they built walls for, protect themselves from people, not from religions. So religions, now, if you say what's the difference between being a religion and being a people, it's very simple. Each of those groups have different rights. People have a nation has a certain set of rights, and religions have a different set of rights. Each of those groups have a different set of rights. If I and my friends start a religion together, we cannot now go to an international body and demand land. We can't go to the United States and say, we are a religion and therefore we want some land. Carve out, some of Oklahoma for us because we're a religion. It's not going to fly. Nobody's going to listen. But if we're a people and we come from a land, right? You can't create a people, but if you come from a land and you're a people, you have rights to demand that back. So that's what it talks about when we say that we are a people. The first element, the very first element of Zionism is that we are a people. We are not just a religion. We also have a religion. Our people have a religion in common. But what unites us is that we are a people. Okay, that's step one of Zionism. Now, you should know, just as an aside, what's fascinating is that Herzl only lived 44 years. So we talk about different stages of Herzl's life. The first quarter of his life, he was only like 12 or 13 years old, right? So take out the first quarter because he's obviously not thinking that much then, okay? And then with the second quarter, take that out also because he's a teenager and brain's not developed, so that doesn't count as well, okay? So when we talk about, there's really only two sections of Herzl's life, in his late 20s and early 30s, and then 30s to 40s. 30s to 40s is where he becomes productive. In the beginning, when he's starting to realize that there's a big problem of anti-Semitism in Europe, he does not consider, and he has quotes that says, the Jewish people are not a people. It's fascinating. He says straight out that if we ever created a state and the Jewish people ever got back to Israel, they would soon begin to realize, I'm paraphrasing here, but they would soon begin to realize that the only thing that made them a people was the hatred of other people. It's fascinating. And in the beginning of his life, when his thoughts were evolving, Herzl did not see the Jewish people as a people. It was only later on that he began to realize, no, we are a people, and that becomes step one of Zionism. Okay, great. So now we've done step one. Let's move on. Now we're talking about our rights. Now, for those of you that live in the United States and you have a driver's license and you remember your driver's lessons, okay, so this is going to go back a year for some people. But if you remember your driver's license, the first thing they tell you, and everybody forgets this line, is that driving is not a right, it's a privilege, right? Because the state can take it away from you. Right? You don't have a right to drive. Voting, on the other hand, is a right. Right? You are entitled to vote. You cannot walk up to the voting booth and then the person says, nah, we're not going to let you vote. We don't think that you're capable of voting. We're a little scared of what might happen based on your vote. That's a right. That's an entitlement that I have. You can't take that away from me. So just as people have rights, right? Humans have individual rights. America has its list of rights that it believes American citizens have. And the United Nations has a list of 40 individual human rights that every human is entitled to. There are also rights of nations. In fact, the United Nations, which I'm sure is everybody's favorite institution on this call, that the United Nations it was created to protect national rights. Nations' rights were being violated primarily by Germany over and over, and that the United Nations formed to create a bond which said that from now on, national rights will not be violated. We're watching national rights of Ukrainians be violated by the Russians. In the first Persian Gulf War, we watched as Saddam Hussein violated the rights of Kuwait by invading Kuwait. That's where national rights are violated. Nations have certain rights. Okay? And so now that we're a people, the Jews enjoy those rights. We get to say, hey, we are a nation, we are a people, we deserve those rights as well. Okay. Now, yes, Susan, good point that there are places that don't see voting, right? Voting becomes a mandatory. That's true. There are certain countries like that. Okay, so now, first of all, by the way, I'm just talking here, and I don't like this. If anybody has a question, so feel free to put it in the chat or raise your hand, and I'll call on you. That's perfectly fine. This should not just be a monologue here. Okay, so if there's something I say that you find either unclear, objectionable, or you just have something that you want to say, so please just put up your hand and we'll say, okay, go ahead. Okay, so now that we have, as a people, we have national rights, and we have the ability to turn to the international community and say, hey, we are entitled, not that we're requesting, not that we wish, not that we desire, not that we've waited a long time, not somebody did something horrible to us, so now let us have something in return, but we have an entitled right to certain things. And chief among them, we all know where we're going, but chief among them is we have a right to land, and our land. Not just a land, but our land. Right? That's going to be one of our chief rights. But first, I'm going to give an interesting example as we move on to the next right. That might be, I know before I made a joke about triggering. This might be scary, but I want you to picture, I'm going to use the United States as an example. This is obviously, I don't believe this would happen in the United States of America, but it did happen for hundreds of years in Russia and Poland and other places. But just imagine for a moment that on a late Thursday night, a member of a local church came to the rabbi of the local synagogue and said that he has horrible news. He needs to warn the rabbi and the local Jews. There's going to be on Sunday after services, there is going to be the members of the church are going to have a list of all the Jews that are members of the synagogue. After services on Sunday, they're going to go to the synagogue. They're going to break in. They're going to burn it down. And then they are going to go home to home, breaking into the homes, causing tremendous violence, killing, maiming, and stealing whatever they want. And that's the plan. It's going to happen Sunday afternoon. And I want to warn, so the rabbi, not the usual rabbi in our case, calls the president, calls the board together, his leaders, his security team, and he says, listen, we got to do something about this. This is going to be very bad. On Shabbat, after our services are done, 24 hours before their plan goes into action, we're going to skip the Kiddush this week. That already got everybody's attention. Then we're going to go to the church. We're going to burn the church down, and we're going to kill all the members of the church. And this is what they do. This is what the community does. Preemptively defends itself and goes ahead and wipes out the members of the church. The church is burnt down. Exactly what was going to happen to them 24 hours later, they do 24 hours earlier. The police come. Jews are covered in blood. They stand there proudly. The police said, what happened? So we defended ourselves. We have the plan. We have all the evidence. Here's what they're planning to do to us. Now, everybody on this Zoom is sitting saying, that's absurd. You can't do that. If the Jews had found out about this plan, then they should have called the police and had the police protect them. They can't go ahead and take matters into their own hands. And that's 100% correct. They should have called the police. The police would have arrested the church leaders. They would have set up a security perimeter around the Jews and make sure nothing happened. That's exactly what should go on. In 1967, the Arab forces surrounded the land of Israel and the country of Israel. And it was not an old country that was well established. And they surrounded and announced that they're going to annihilate the Jews. And it was obvious when they were going to start. They didn't know exact times and everything, but Israel was pretty much able to figure out that it was going to be on a Monday morning that they were going to start. And on that Sunday morning, 24 hours previous, Israel preemptively defended itself by going on an air raid and bombing out the Egyptian airplanes sitting on the runway, taking out 90% of the Egyptian Air Force as their pilots sat and ate breakfast in their dining rooms. Okay? All the planes sitting on the runway out in the open, Israel took it out. We all know this story. And that's the national right of defense. That's self-determination. What Herzl understood, he didn't know that a Holocaust was coming. He didn't know how bad things were going to get in Europe. But what he did see was that things were getting worse. He knew it was worse, and he knew that as long as the Jewish people were in exile, they were going to be completely dependent on their Gentile neighbors, Gentile law enforcement, Gentile armies for their own defense. And he realized that was not a good plan. That until Jews have their own state and they're in their own land, they cannot determine their own future. They cannot make the choices that they want. They don't have control over everything. And Herzl said the Jewish people must have control over their own future. And that's self-determination. That's our third element. Our third element is that Jews have the right, they are entitled to determine their own future, whether it's defense or whether it's deciding, I don't mean to bring up anything controversial, but what kind of powers the Supreme Court is going to have, what kind of powers the security services are going to have, what rights patients are going to have in hospitals. We're going to determine that ourselves. Nobody else is going to determine that. And thank God we chose a democratic system, that we're going to go that way so that everybody has a say in what happens. And that's the system that we created. And that's the third element of Zionism. The first one, again, is that we are a people. The second is that we have rights. And the third now is that we can determine our own future. Self-determination. We have a right to self-determination. We get to decide. Nobody can come here and tell the Jews how they should run the country. You can advise, you can suggest, you can put a little pressure, but you may not tell us, and we're not going to listen, how we should run our country. And only then can the Jews be assured of their own safety, their own security, and their own destiny that they get to decide. That's the third element, and most probably really the most important element of them all. Okay. By the way, I'm very serious about taking questions or comments. I don't know if people here are believing me, because I'm not getting any. So I'm a little nervous, but I'm okay with that. And even challenges, if you want to challenge me, really, I'm very much okay with it. Susan, go ahead. I see you're thinking about it, but really, I'm okay with it. It's okay. I'm a big boy. Okay, so let's go on to our fourth and last element, and this one is our own homeland, right? This is our own homeland. Now, when we talk about our own homeland, so this is the key. Zionism is Zion, right? Now, everybody's going to say to me, hold on a second, what about Uganda? Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of things. First of all, Uganda wasn't even the first of the second choices. Okay, Herzl, if you've read Dar Judenstaat, you've read his book, Jewish State. So Herzl was thinking Palestine, Argentina, right? He had never been to Argentina, and they didn't have television shows then. So I don't know. He describes Argentina as this lush place. Now, I've never been to Argentina, but I don't know if it is as lush as Herzl describes it. I don't know how Herzl knew it was lush. I'm not sure why he thought that would be a great place for all of us to go and start farms. But Argentina was one of his first choices. And here's the shocker. It was worth it to come here just for this, because you'll all quote this at your Shabbat table. This is a fascinating tidbit that I found in my research on Zionism. Everybody get ready for this one. Buckle your seatbelts for this. The Uganda plan wasn't in Uganda. This is the craziest thing, okay? Here's the craziest thing. Now get ready to make fun of your British friends. The British had so much land, and they ruled over so much, that they weren't even sure where they were ruling. They had no idea. So they had all these maps in front of them, and they didn't know what was what, where was which. Okay, that's India. Maybe Pakistan wasn't. These places weren't in existence yet. And then they took out the map of Africa and showed it to Herzl and said, you can create a state here. We got all this land here. They were actually pointing to Kenya. Our state would never have been in Uganda. It's absolutely fascinating, because it's called the Uganda Plan. Herzl got up because the British told him he could be in Uganda. And Herzl got up and announced Uganda, and that got into all the books. And we talk about the Uganda scheme or the Uganda plan. Never in Uganda. It was actually Kenya. Fascinating. Okay. So, yes, it's true. Briefly, we considered other places, and that's because Zionism was motivated by two factors. One is what we're discussing tonight, our rights. But then there was something a little more urgent. They didn't even realize how urgent it was, but now we can see just how urgent it was, and it really gives us pause to think. I don't want to give anybody nightmares or keep them up at night, but this keeps me up, I should tell you, at night. Okay, that's great, Susan. Okay, so maybe one day I get to see that myself. But what Herzl was motivated by, first and foremost, was protecting the Jewish people from rising anti-Semitism. He had to get them out of Europe. And if that required a stopover before we get to Israel, before we get home, the British couldn't offer Herzl Palestine because it was still part of the Ottoman Empire. So they could offer him Uganda. When Herzl made his pitch and said, look, you see the pogroms in Poland, you see the pogroms in Russia, we have to save ourselves. So the British were empathetic to that. They understood that, and they agreed, and they said, okay, so what we'll give you, Uganda will give you a place where you can be safe, and you can be assured of your own safety. We'll give you that place. And it was a good offer. And that's why Herzl sat there and brought it to the Zionist Congress. And that's why the Zionist Congress didn't reject it out of hand. They debated it for years because they said, okay, this could be. Now imagine for a moment that the Zionist Congress and the Russian Jews, who were really the voice of opposition to the Uganda plan, imagine if they had been quiet and they said yes, and we had a Jewish state during the Holocaust, where Jews could freely go. Now, I'm not saying that, I don't know what, it's very easy to play Monday morning quarterback and look back and say, oh, we should have done this. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know. I don't know if that maybe we should have done that. I'm almost 100% positive had we accepted Uganda, we never would have come to Palestine and to Israel. That's an easy call to make. But we also would have had millions of Jews saved from the gas chambers of Germany. So it's a difficult choice. I didn't say that this was going to be a feel-good class. No one promised you that. Okay, I'm saying I'm going to get you to think, and I've gotten you to think. That's for sure. So homeland now, but now it was rejected. We all know how history went. The Jews rejected the idea of going to Uganda. Argentina was never even taken seriously, and the Jews decide it's Israel, it's Palestine or bust. Right? That's where we're going. And thankfully, we went and we've built a great homeland, but it's only in your own land. Can you imagine if we went to Uganda, what we'd be dealing with? We're called occupiers in a land that's actually ours. Imagine if we were actually occupying another land, what that would look like, right? Then there would be no defense. You're occupiers. We'd say, yes, you're colonialists. Yes, right? So yeah, but we needed it to save ourselves, right? So that would be our justification, but we would eventually have to leave. Right? I don't know where we would go, but we would eventually have to leave. So that's this idea. When we talk about a homeland, we talk about that we can only have everything that we've talked about: self-determination, our own rights. That can only happen in our own land. That is the way the world works, and this is the land that we were told to go to. This is the land that we breathe. Everybody, if you're on this Zoom call, you live and breathe Israel. There's no way about it. I don't care if you don't live here. You live and breathe Israel. You think about it all the time. You're not signing up for a Zionist Zoom call if you don't think about Israel a lot, right? This is the last thing you're going to do at 4 p.m., right? So that's the idea of a homeland, is a place. It's that feeling that we get that we can't describe to other people when you land at Ben Gurion and the pilot says we've landed, right? There's nobody claps when they get to Acapulco, right? So that's right. They clap when they get to Israel because there's an outpouring of emotion. Try explaining to somebody what it feels like every time you step back at the Western Wall at the Kotel. Try putting that into words. You can't. That's our homeland. It's our land. It's our culture. It's our own identity. That only occurs here. You can open up a Yiddish theater in the Lower East Side, and it's not going to be the same as taking a walk down the streets of Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. It's just not. This is our land. This is our home. And that's the fourth component, the fourth element of the compound of Zionism. So I'll go back here to the first quote from that famous Zionist scholar Mitzvah Yericho, and so we'll look at this compound here and look at it and see exactly. Now we understand what Zionism actually is. Zionism, in its most basic stripped down components, is this: the Jewish people have a right to self-determination in their historic homeland, the land of Israel. This is what Zionism stood for. It was the basis that everybody walking into those congresses, everybody that was reading the papers, everybody that was thinking about, should I move, should I not move, am I going to be saving my family, am I going to be harming my family? This was what was going through their minds. This idea that we are a people. No, wait, I'm not. I have to tell you the honest truth here, and please, still come to the next classes after I say this. I am not the biggest Herzl fan. Okay, I'm not the biggest. I'm not. I've read his works. Not that impressed with the guy, but I'll tell you what I am greatly impressed by. What he was able to do was the Jews never thought of themselves as a people for hundreds, if not thousands of years until Herzl came around. There were people in Paris and there were people in a shtetl in Russia. And the two of them didn't think about each other. The Jews in Paris were thinking about what the Jews in Paris were doing. And the Russian Jews were thinking about what they were doing in their little shtetl. And nobody had any idea that we had Jews in Ethiopia. Nobody had any idea that there were Jews in Yemen. They thought those people were gone hundreds and hundreds of years before. Herzl was able to say, no, 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 no. We are one people. And he got the Jewish people to think as a people for the very first time. For the very first time, we thought as one people. And that was an amazing accomplishment. That was of all his achievements, to get the Jews who are divided. We all know the divisions that plague our people. To get them to think about the fact that no, we're our people, that was amazing. So that's the first basis of Zionism. And then as a people, we have rights. We don't have to be the football of everybody being kicked around. We have rights. We have rights just like any other nation. Not only that, we are going to do better with our rights than many other nations will. We're going to treat people with justice. Our traditions and force us to be generous and kind to others. Self-determination for thousands of years, we weren't able to determine our future. And then the idea of a historic homeland, the land of Israel. That's what Zionism is. That's what this lecture is. So I'm going to give you one last chance to ask questions or tell me why you think I'm wrong for this whole thing. But and then we're just going to end this. So it's up to you. Okay. So thank you everybody for. Oh wait, Mark, you got it. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I like this class. It's very good. So you don't like Herzl. Who's your guy? Jabotinsky, or who do you like?
I gotta tell you, you're gonna think I'm absolutely crazy. You think I'm crazy. First of all, I'm a massive Begin guy. Okay, Matt, I love Begin. I just love a very straightforward thinking. I just relate to him. But I'm not gonna tell you who it is now, so you don't get upset at me. Read a book called A Durable Peace. I'm not gonna tell you who wrote it. Okay, Vivian's going to Google, because if you do, everyone's gonna hang up on the thing. Read this book. Forget about who the author is. Just forget about who the author is. I really think it's one of the best Zionist authors, not because of who it is. I'm saying it's as loud as you can hear me, not because of the author. Okay, the author happened to be the person that told me read this book. But forget about who the author is. If you can read it blindly, as Susan saw, if you can read it blindly, I can almost promise you will say, wow. I said it to his face, said to the author's face, I never knew you were this scholarly. I said straight to him. And I said, you shocked me. But that's what I say. And the other person I would say is Gil Troy. And Ellie actually was on this call, is the one that introduced me to Gil's writings. And now Gil's a mentor of mine. I talk to him almost every single day. Ellie got me a gift, one of his books that totally changed my life. And that's who I would say. Those are my guys.
Okay, I'll check it out. I'm driving. I can't check Amazon right now, but thanks.
Do not look while you're driving. You will crash. I can almost promise you. When you see, you'll crash.
I'll play devil's advocate with this question.
Go ahead, Jason.
So what do we do with an argument that goes that the Philistines were there, and since then there's been descendants. Now they call themselves Palestinians. They make a claim that they've been there for a very long time also, and the land is also theirs.
So I'm going to tell you two things. I'm going to give you two answers. One, as an Israeli, and two, as somebody who likes to pretend to be a scholar slash expert slash teacher and educator in this area. Okay. First one, as an Israeli, I don't care what anybody says. Been here for 75 years. We're here. You're not taking this away from us. It's way too late. You had your chance. You blew it, and that's it. Israel's not going anywhere. Doesn't matter how good your argument is. It does not make a difference. We're here. There's a lot better arguments to give against the United States of America and its legitimacy. And so that's my answer as an Israeli. Because as an Israeli, I can utilize the most impressive of all debate and argument tactics, which is chutzpah, and say, I don't really care what you say because it means absolutely nothing to me because we're here and we're here to stay. As somebody who studies the topic, The question is absolutely absurd. The Romans had never met a descendant of the 7 Canaanite nations. The Romans, 500 years before the Romans came here, all of those people were assimilated or conquered or out. They were gone. But even if you want to say that Yasser Arafat was the one descendant left, he somehow made it through and created the entire Palestinian people from his genetics, and they're all there. And the Philistines themselves are from Greece. They're from Greece. So even if you want to say that the Philistines don't have a better argument than us, but really, if you want to go, and I can send you, if you send me an email, I sent you an email this morning, so you send me an email, I'll send you wonderful arguments on the indigenous aspects of how Jews are indigenous. There's a lot of articles on this that you can read. Indigenous doesn't, according to the international understanding that the United Nations published, indigenous doesn't mean you were the first ones there. There are like 5 factors that qualify you as indigenous, and in this region, the Jews are indigenous to the land of Israel. It's without once you just chart it out. You look at the 5 factors that the United Nations uses to determine who's indigenous, and then you look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So there's not even a question. But again, I'm going to revert back to my Israeli side and just say, I don't debate this stuff. It doesn't matter because we are here.
Great, Toda Rabba.
Sure. Thank you.
Uri, I just want to say thank you. Even though I agree with your definition, your worldly quoted definition, you've given me food for thought, and I thought this was a great class. I'm going to ponder for the rest of the night and probably throughout the week, and I look forward to more classes. So
Okay, excellent. I hope everybody enjoy next week, and tell all your friends. It'll be a great experience. Everybody have a Shabbat Shalom from Israel.
I have a question.
Oh, sure. Susan, sorry. Sure, go ahead.
Can I just give somebody the link, or do they have to sign up? And if there's a sign up, could you tell me what it is?
You could just give them the link, but you should definitely sign up also. You should definitely sign up. So I sent you an email this morning. I respond to that email. No, because I would say that I would remember, but it's almost midnight here.
I put the link in the chat. It's very easy.
Thank you, Viv.
Great. Thanks. So that's perfect. Okay, there you go. Now you have it. Okay, everybody have a Shabbat Shalom and love from Israel. All the best, everybody.
Have a great weekend.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.